It's 4:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone that has, community members, thank you everybody else that has decided to attend. I don't think I'd go through my normal spiel, everybody. So again, I just think that the sharing of ideas, they're always welcome.
Stiff neck.
Yeah, no, you guys are always welcome. Anybody that wants to, but I understand if you don't want to. I mean, it's just, so, I think we just, with the sharing of ideas and exchange of ideas, I think that there'll just be a greater understanding, and so please feel free to ask questions. The only thing, again, I ask is no one speaks over each other, and we try to stay on topic. Okay? So,
Thank you.
first thing that we always do is stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
There it is.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We just got the meeting. Internet's ready.
Makes sense, okay.
That's why.
I need a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You guys are so cooperative. All in favor? Great. And you'll notice that right now we don't have the meeting minutes from last meeting because we did just meet a week ago. And we had internet problems and just, it was just too much of a time crunch. So we will approve those at the next meeting, okay? Any public comment? No, Rachel?
I'm good.
Okay.
We can ask questions later, right?
Oh, and during, I mean, as long as, we're, like I said, we're not many community members here, but yeah, absolutely. Okay, Mary, Dr. Stratos, please, it's all yours.
Mary will work. As a principal, it was always Stratos. Stratos, yeah. And here it's actually the first time I responded to Mary. With Dr. Rodriguez, he calls me Mary, which is quite a change. It really is. It's Mary Elizabeth Peter. I just thought I'd let you know that. I might as well just rip it like a Band-Aid. Yes, I took Peter for my confirmation name after my father. Okay, and the bishop did say, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, I am." Okay.
I wasn't gonna ask. But I'm glad you shared.
There's those little tidbits we need to know. So if you see the opening statement is actually something from Heritage Day. I don't know if you remember on stage, you guest speaker, right? We're pulling from the past and pushing into the future for positive change, right? And I found it very moving, so that's kind of been the mantra since then, right? Pulling from the past to go forward for the positive. So I'm going to walk you through a few things, and we do have to do some discussion. I think it's important because I'm pulling information that's been already existing here within Beaufort County. And I think as a group, we have to have at some point discussion, talk about our mission, our vision statement. Any organization every 5 years should revisit this. I believe this has been institutionalized for 7 to 8 years. So as an organization at some point, we should look to revisit, especially since this first part of my presentation is about the strategic plan. And not to say that we would do that right now, but I think going forward, as we grow going forward as a district together, if we want to revisit this language, we could always update it in our strategic plan, okay? These are core beliefs, and Kathy, you just sent it to me this morning. Yeah, because what happens, I'm typing and I get interrupted, and then I just keep typing, so you know how it is. Right? So these are the core beliefs for us as a school district, which I think are fundamentally very strong. And as you read them, we're going to go forward into some of the information that we received from our Listen and Learn tours. You'll see some type of collective similarity, okay? Here's a little bit of updated information. The question's going to come forward. These numbers, did they correlate with the numbers last night? And they're not. The numbers last night by Ms. Crosby are from our 45-day. This is as of this week. Well, technically before the internet crashed.
Yeah.
So now we have a new marker here in Beaufort County before internet crash and after, right? So these are actually, so if you see a discrepancy looking into the numbers from last night, you can understand why, okay? And the purpose of this is to take a look at who are we numerically as a county, right? Nice size of students, just under 23,000. Okay, 10th largest in South Carolina. So now we're starting to look a little closer. Where are we in the listing? Today we did training with principals, and we also had them do we ranked ourselves in comparison to other counties. In order so that we could be reflective as to who we are, but who we are academically in comparison to others. So we're trying to get our principals to also have that conversation, to be competitive, to be number one. But we're 10th in the state as a large district. Poverty index. I don't have to go into too much detail unless we're familiar where our distribution of poverty is here within the county. What's most important is what we're doing to equalize opportunities for public education. And I think it's important that we see where our index is, how close we are to South Carolina, and then go to a realization, all right, that we have schools that are above the state poverty index. Okay? And this is just an update of information that's being part of the language when we put together our strategic plan, what we are looking at. I gave you a poverty index for our schools in the county. So now let's have a conversation about our language learners, because they're the next subgroup of needs not being met in our county. So we look at children of color, and we look at ATSI schools, right? And we look at children of special needs, ATSI schools, and now it's language learners is the next largest group growing. That's placed in a classification under ESSA. So we do have a growing enrollment. You will see a shift only because of socioeconomic makeup from south to north of the broad. As renting and land becomes more scarce here, people will move to the north side. Right? And noting that is that we're trying to think in advance for academic programs as well for later on in the next few years for our county. All right, here's your state enrollment. Now the mirroring is going to say, well, I come from a school that I managed that only had 2,000 kids less than that. Right? 4,500 language learners is not an easy situation. In all reality, state only allows you funding for how many years? Two. You have 2 years for acquisition of language. 2. So what would it be if we landed in a different country and you had 2 years to learn not only the basic academic language, but as well as the academic language necessary in order to be successful. And that's what our teachers face on a daily basis, okay? This continues looking at the distribution, all right?
Mary, can I just
Yes,
ask, so
ma'am.
the state of South Carolina only, like, you identify a student through the parent fills out a language survey.
Language service, English
And
language survey,
then that student is screened or tested by
Yes.
some of our testers.
yes.
And then as soon as it goes into Power School and identified as an English language learner, the state then gives you 2 years to help.
Depending on your outcome from that test, yes.
Yeah, right.
Yes, and the classification within that, yes.
So depending on what level English
Yes.
language learner you are, there might
Yes,
be a
on the
different
access
amount of,
test.
but there's a different amount of money? Do you get more money for?
No, same amount, same amount, same amount, same amount.
Okay.
So one of the areas that we'll start having conversation with schools, and May, who's our Eastern coordinator for the district, is what do we do with regard to our ELL kids and meeting needs? Because I know that was also something that came up, but I'm a board member in those conversations, okay? So we just wanted to get a little closer look as to who we serve in comparison to others. This is by school. Doesn't do it. Okay. I was trying to make it larger for you, but I think you have that metric, that handout. I can add that under my tenure now, we have added 2 more bilingual liaisons. I took a position and traded it off to get 2 more liaisons on board. So we have full-time now in the south and full-time in the north, a lead liaison to help out, all right? So that's one thing I've been able to add at least. So, just again, strategic plan. Remember we did the listen and learn. So the state requires 3 areas of classification. student achievement, administrative teacher quality, and climate. These are the trends that came forward. If we sat and codified the language from the listen and learns, these would be themes that came forward, all right? So equitable and viable curriculum for all students. I classify that under the state characteristic under student achievement. It's a requirement for a strategic plan. Multi-tiered system of support to ensure all students are receiving the needed academic and emotional reinforcement. I code that under student achievement. So you can understand, the method of how this was put forward. Any questions yet? Any answers? Are we good with the themes? Yeah? This was actually the voice of the people.
Or say, this is
And-
when Frank went around and did all the list.
Yes.
Okay,
And if you go back to your core beliefs,
yeah.
they're kind of in a similar theme, all right? They're kind of in a similar theme, which lets you know that when you wrote your core beliefs, you were still in the same need, but also you were listening to people. And that's very important, okay? So what I did then is for you to get a better look at where these themes fall. And it would be used as a building block for a strategic plan, right? Use these ideas for a building block for a strategic plan. So from each one of our themes, in case of student achievement, I broke down the themes. And eventually what we have to identify are initiatives that tie with this. With overarching, I do it again, thank you. You're sensitive. Right? With overarching metrics to say, what do we want to say will be student achievement? How much do we want to see our kids grow, let's say in 1 year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, because that's how our strategic plan should be written. So at some point, I'd like to get that type of input from us from academic committee, share that with, because we also have principal committee involved in this, and this is going to go out to teachers as well, right, to get a little more voice going back and forth. So I kept with the same template, and this is what's going to be used by Carmen Dillard to keep the same template, okay? You good with that? I want your input. All right, boom, 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 down to climate.
And so what is Carmen's role?
Carmen's is actually acting as facilitating.
Oh, got it, she is.
Right, with other groups.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Her job is to assist me in facilitating. So she'll go out and now present and get information with regard to what initiatives you see that could tie with this. And then we'll go through the same codification as we did for the core themes that I identified
Right.
here, okay? And actually, this codification, Chrissy, it's her name from communication. She did, the young lady worked, Chrissy, she did most of the codification, and the young lady worked hard on this. So taking that information, when we start talking about initiatives for us, I want us to think about the student learners first. And from that we have, and this goes a little bit to what you were driving the bus last night, Mel, the kids learning. The kids are first. From that you have two houses that we need to look into. Academics and what? Student support services. The curriculum and the soft curriculum, for those of you in education. Then we looked at the idea of going birth to 12, student learning support programs, and sensitive, and support services, okay? So I tried to break that up. So not to take in too much into the weeds and the vernacular we use, but at least having first a conversation to student support services, we put the student first as a centripetal perspective. These are the mindsets that we should be talking about as a school district, right? These are the layers that we should be looking at: social, emotional, mental health, and actually behavior, right? And then looking at the community, home, school, and collaboration. Right? So what I did to that was, on mine actually, I have this all backed up with research as to the why. Why is it important with social emotional that we look into these areas? Like social emotion, you need to think about the school, single school culture. What is that feeling to get into school? Universal screeners. What are we doing as a district regarding that, from dyslexia, special needs, okay? Curriculum, Bible curriculum, and there's a curriculum that actually ties to social emotional. Are we doing that as a system? That's one of my recommendations to us, that we should look at some type of curriculum for social emotional. And then looking at the professional development to help build the capacity of our teachers to, to understand kids. Mental health, same scenario. Thank you. My allergies. And carpet.
social emotional, I wanted to add
Yes,
something.
ma'am.
I wanna make sure that you're to focus on your point of social emotional. Some states are actually taking social emotional and creating learning standards for social emotional. I don't know if you came from a state that had social emotional learning standards, but for children pre-K through 12th grade. So it's actually becoming a part of the standards within their curriculum.
It's no longer referred to as a soft curriculum, right?
Yes.
It is now a hard curriculum, something to be utilized for instructional class. The question would be, because Florida is crossing over into that domain as
Okay,
a
I
result
was
of the
wondering.
Margaret Stoneman's Douglas Act. How do we infuse that in the same sense of the accountability, right? And there's ways of doing that, of integrating it, no different than you do an integrated instructional model, right?
Right. Well, we do it in pre-K every day, but, now you have to start learning how to do it for a 12th grader as well.
Well, let's go to, and actually middle school is where kids become deviant from being social, right? What happens at the middle school is the hormonal change in the body, and it just changes everything. The rational kid is no longer rational. And it's true. I don't mean, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. Okay. So I only added these hyperlinks if you wanted to see any research that I had tied to it, That's it. These are my slides. I couldn't put my stuff out open to the whole community. I have to share that. I couldn't put my stuff out to everyone. So when we're looking at behavior, these are the points to talk about, right? Are we talking about behavior and rehabilitation? Last week we had the Department of Juvenile Justice speak to all the principals. In the state of South Carolina, we actually have kids incarcerated at the age of 11. From school to jail. Today, part of our conversation with principals was, what are we doing to stop that? And if I'm not in school, well, really, what are we doing? We're reinforcing the behavior, right? Then the teacher side of me kicked in and said, but I really don't want Mary in the classroom. Right? Mary's a difficult student. That's where it goes back to that school-wide climate that we create for children. I'm putting systems in place that builds the capacity of the educator, put systems in place for kids that it's not all the same shoe size that fits everyone. And maybe I may work better with some more challenging kids, where you may work differently with the kids, and having that recognition with the principals to know that as well, okay? Key part for me is community. I think that's an area, as a district, we have to push forward a little more. Is the integration of the community and the role that they can play within our schools, north and south and abroad. And it should be one voice of expectations for our children here in the county. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Just a question, that your handouts don't match.
I did predicate that, Tony, to say that this is my presentation because
Okay.
it's tied to my hyperlinks. So I gave you the quick presentation,
Sorry.
all right? I just wanted to break it down a little more. I do apologize, sir, if I didn't come forward enough. So now let's turn the page. I gave you a little bit of the why in my thinking. This is all my why. Does that make sense? I had to give you why. And these are initiatives that we are talking about within our division. Number one, our expectation is standard-based instruction. I'd love to tell a story as an ELA teacher. What's the standard? Real simple, right? What's the standard? Standard of operation, all right? We want to be able to ensure that we have early childhood creative curriculum for students in math and science. I wonder who gave us that idea. We'd like to have a balanced literacy, reading, writers workshop, writing units of study, Lucy Calkins, right? A refinement of MTSS effective Tier 1 instruction. Right? Interventions are for everyone, and that was a theme today. Yes, ma'am.
So Mary, are you in your rounds around the schools, okay? Did you come up with this because you're not seeing these? Did you come up with this because you're seeing them in various places but not uniformly?
Consistently.
Consistently. Balanced literacy.
Right.
And, it's been in the district for many, Lucy Calkins. Talk about a name that's been, so my question.
So, I think we're bringing this forward because as you have a change of personnel, you see different levels of proficiency and performances in the classroom.
Right.
okay? So I don't want to speak for just two who are in schools a little more than myself. It's not that I'm not seeing, I'm saying that it would be better that we just tightened it up a little bit more. If this is what we're saying, this is what we're doing right now, this is what we're doing,
Yeah, and I'm not
let's
sure
just
that,
improve a little at what we're doing. So if you see the dark ink, it's what we're doing.
Okay,
This is what we do.
right.
This is what I think we need to get a little better at.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, because
Okay,
I was
because this is what we
hoping,
do.
I mean, I see when I go into classrooms and go
Yes.
to schools, I see at least
Yes.
I see them on the board.
Yeah.
I see them on the board. I mean, MTSS is new, but it's really just RTI. It's a rose by a different name.
That's all it is.
Maybe it's not a rose, maybe it's a, I don't know, but I don't know about the science.
Could be a bougainvillea.
It could, oh, there you go, there you go. So, okay,
All right, but now what we're looking is access for all students for extended learning beyond. Do all kids have access to after school? Do all kids have access to summer reading programs? That's what we're asking for. Building capacity, literacy, numeracy, inquiry, and resilience in our teachers. That I'm not gonna be a math teacher, but I'm someone who can actually have this type of conversation. Because if I can't read, I'm not gonna pass that EOC. And that's the world that we're in today. The lexile of an EOC at the high school level and what may be the capability of some of our kids is a gap.
yes.
So now we have an obligation to build that capacity within our educators to help meet that. We can't just say, go do it. Right? We should be building that capacity within our educators as well. And it's in an environment that they're safe, and that begs on the question of literacy coaching their use,
Right.
and that we are looking into.
Right,
Okay?
and fully knowing that teachers have so many standards to cover, that when the idea is that, okay, now I'm a reading teacher in 10th grade,
Yep.
I mean, it's just,
Or the conversations we had last week, better matriculation from the lower grades up, so that when we're doing biology,
right?
we have a little better foundation, so that I'm a little more prepared for you, right? The algebra teacher, I'm a little more prepared
Right,
when I'm sitting in that algebra class. Protocol for practice of instructional coaches, that's where that comes in. Really, what does it look like, and we are revisiting that. Okay, we're already working, my division, working with Dr. Westbury at a Citadel, putting together a model to look at our coaches, that first thing with our coaches, we want them to have the capacity to build relationships, that's number one. Number two, to be able to tell some type of story with the data. What does the data say for that school in that time and place? Third item would be, now what are you gonna do with that data? Is it aligned effectively to me? The fourth item would be what? To go reflective and start that process all over again. So we're looking to put that type of model in, that we build that capacity for our coaches. And I know this is something that you've heard from us, but we would like is a formative data. How do we drive standards-based instruction? If I say to a teacher, it's standards-based instruction, what tools are we giving our teachers in order to measure intermittently when they're not doing math testing? So this is elementary, initiatives on secondary. It continues on the same guideline. I do want to go in here. What I provide here are career pathways. So this document I can't give you as a backup, but I wanted you to see that we are working on career pathways by our schools, what we're working at. Okay? What we need to get better at is the matriculation from the middle to the high school, or from the elementary middle to the high school within our clusters. That's a conversation I'm already having with with Karen, who's our career technical education director, but she's not a choice director. Does that make sense what I'm saying to you? You know, we need someone who actually handles choice, who's the one to say, who works more in tangent, okay? But we are working at revisiting the matriculation and what we're doing within our programs. And I have already started to take a look at this information by data, by subgroup, by someone in our audience who asked me to take a look at that. That information is already being reviewed, okay? Yes, ma'am.
Do we also, are we working on getting information that we can share with the students, that if they are in the marketing or information technology, what clusters they could segue into at TCL?
So, the answer to that is absolutely yes, Mrs. Robine.
Excellent.
I already, well, actually, Will Smith answered that at a board meeting quite early on when
Right.
I arrived here. And I put that immediately on to Karen, and we're working on that. We already got our banners. Number one, the CTE, the Career Technical Educational Coordinators, have been working on the matriculation and creating documentation to show you what it looks like on pathways, and to be able to get up through TCL. Okay, and that we hope to open the school year with that. So the answer with that is yes, we are working on that. Absolutely, that I already did a first review on it. So, and then it'll actually go to guidance counselors.
I wanted to ask about the data that talks about the number of kids that are applying to get into TCL, and those that actually are successful with getting into passing the interest test.
And the industry certification exams. That's what you want. We
Or
could
the
take.
dual relic program in general. Are we looking at the data that shows the number of kids that try to get into the dual enrollment programs versus those that actually are successful with getting in
So
to the dual enrollment?
for the dual enrollment program, there's 2 GPAs. One for traditional academics is a 3.0. For career technical education, it's a 2.75. One of the unique, wonderful things, and I'm going to say, I am promoting this. This is a wonderful thing that the state of South Carolina and Beaufort County School District allows for dual enrollment for career technical education. It lends children opportunity to develop skill sets and become financially independent. All right, I grew up without a father. I put myself through college because I was able to be financially independent when I was my last year at North Rockland High School. They were very happy for me not to be there all day. I went to cosmetology school. I was not able to go to my mother to ask. I had to put myself through. All right, so that's one of the beautiful things of CTE. So the kids have to be able to meet the requirement for GPA. That is number one. I do review the grades for the kids in order to say, Mary can now go to second semester dual enrollment again. I'm looking at grades at this time and place because I want to make sure we're meeting the requirement of a C or higher. We're not letting kids fail, and I'm paying for you to take a course twice because that's against the AR for the school district. So those are things right now at that level that I'm looking at. We haven't broken that data down by subgroup to see the students who are going through. But that's the essence of one of the good things we're doing at Whale Branch College. I'm very direct with Whale Branch Early College. That program there allows children in, and I hate to say minority kids, but it allows the children at the school early access, and it's one of the only schools, it is the only school in the county that has a guidance counselor from the college on campus.
But are you asking about the AccuPlacer?
Yeah.
The AccuPlacer for the kids to get.
Maybe that's something different.
Okay.
But my concern is, we have a number of kids that are trying to get into the dual enrollment program that are not successful, based on the kids that I've spoken to.
Right.
And then the other thing is, I know at Robert Sparks Middle School, it was shared to me that we are no longer offering Algebra 1 or English 1.
You
So,
brought that up to me.
yeah.
Okay, and that's not something that I have been able since yesterday I had to go any further, because you just brought that up to me last night.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
And
do you know why are those kids telling you why they're not getting in?
No,
Have
no.
they shared
there's
that?
2 things.
It's 2 things. The first thing with the kids, I just ask them, I recommend that they go and take it, and then when I go back and have a conversation with them and ask them where they're successful, then they tell me no.
But no
But I don't
because.
know why
Okay.
they weren't successful. I just
Okay.
know that they were not successful.
Okay.
And then,
So one could be the SAT or ACT for the traditional academic program. They're not meeting the second qualifier, okay? Whereas if they're doing a career technical education course, the ACT or SAT score entrance level is at a lower level. That could be an inhibitor. So there are free tutoring that they could take. Khan Academy has free ACT and SAT tutoring that we might have to do a better job of sharing that with the guidance counselors to better prepare the kids. Because at the academic level, they have, I believe, it's a 1200 or higher in order to go take English 1, the college algebra classes. It's a little more stringent. So it's a 3.0 plus a college ready indicator they have to take that's beyond the AccuPlacer. The AccuPlacer is utilized for algebra placement. If I could take earth space science early, those classes of entrance But for the college level, I don't believe they use the AccuPlacer, they're using GPA and SAT and or the ACT.
Our students are told they have to take a test
Yeah.
for TCL enrollment. I
Uh-huh.
don't know what it's called. I
Okay.
thought it was AccuPlacer, but I'm told you do have to take a test before you can go to TCL. I don't know what the score is, but
Okay.
that's
My
what's.
understanding is the ACT and SAT, because I've dealt with some families regarding that, but I could look a little further into the AccuPlacer. I know we utilize AccuPlacer for high school ready classwork, for the middle school child, right, to take Algebra 1. And that's something that is a conversation, by the way, to say, is it state law, that threshold point, or is that district administrative reg, that threshold point, that may be acting as a barrier to enable more children in? And that's a conversation we started
Are
today.
you talking numbers for those particular tests?
For the AccuPlacer, yes, is a marker that the students must reach in order to qualify for Algebra 1 honors, let's say at 7th grade or 8th grade. Our county does not allow a child to take Algebra 1 honors at 6th grade.
That's not the program you're talking about. I mean, that's not the same kind of,
Well, I know
Entry
we
level
used to
topics.
allow students to take English 1 and Algebra 1 in the middle school.
Right.
And I believe that it has
It's a separate
helped
high.
to have kids more readily once they get to high school in both Will Branch and Hilton Head and Bluffton clusters, but if Battery Creek cluster and Robert Smalls is not allowing kids to take those classes in the middle school, then we are hindering Battery Creek once they get to us. We're doing more remediation than we should be doing because kids are not ready.
So
And that's-
a horrible approach would be, let me just teach you to the SC ready, versus let me teach you to help you excel and fly. Right? I could share with you the philosophy of myself and our superintendent, Dr. Rodriguez, is more of the latter of the two philosophies, right? Let me help you fly. We really don't stand strong with inhibitors for children. And one of the things we're starting to do is do what we call a master board review. So first we're doing instructional rounds, the 13 schools, we're starting with 13 schools. The second phase of that is going to be instructional review of the master boards. Who are we giving access to? And it's a real simple thing. Subgroups, one access, programs on the other access, right? And you repeat. Black, white, Hispanic, boom. English 1, English 2, Earth-based science. Tell me how many kids you have in these programs. That's how simple it is to map it out for someone to get a look in the mirror. So that's one of the strategies that we will be approaching with our principals. We need them to look and then have that conversation of inhibitors.
So, Mary, in doing that master board, then, are you also looking to see whether across the county the courses are being offered? Because, and I don't know this, but I've heard a few things that, well, at this school you can do this, at this school you can't. So is that part of this master board also?
Well, there's two things. One is, I think you're asking if the master board analysis is going to be reaching out to all 32 schools. I don't have the capacity to do that to that extent, so we're chunking
got
that,
it.
so that's
Okay.
A. B, that already came to, let's say, my child is not able to take English 2 right now. I'm dealing, and,
Yes, I know.
okay?
Yes.
So, and it's more than one school,
Is it?
right? So this feeder pattern, as you brought forward, is a lens for that allotment, right? This feeder pattern doesn't. It doesn't, it's not something that we're supporting, that's why we're reading master boards.
Okay.
What we have also done is take a look at how many kids have had a continuum of access for classes right now. On English 1 and 2 honors, I've only been able to do that and actually look at that in subgroups to see who's where. Does that make sense? So I've been able to take a look at that type of data with Jared Henderson, by the way. So we're starting to peel that onion to make ourselves look at ourselves, right? I think it's important, but once we look at ourselves, what systems do we have in place so that I don't go into learned helplessness as a student and I'm able to succeed, right? It goes back to that school climate. Give me hope back, but also give me the skill sets to be successful, okay?
Can I ask another question?
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
go back to that chart where you had all the CTE listed? You know, you had the welding and
Yes, ma'am.
everything. So, Dr. Stratos, these classes are not part of school choice, right? The kids cannot go, unless you go to ACE, and I know, I mean,
So,
Unless you're
if
an
there's
ace.
clarification, what is school choice? Let's see about transportation. We
Right.
had that conversation as well with, early on sidebar this morning. Yeah, you have a meeting, there's about 5 others happening at the same time, but that's the nature of people.
Right.
Is choice AP capstone or is choice PLTW?
Yeah.
So those are the questions myself that I am asking. So we really need to define what is choice.
I agree.
And have a choice manual.
I
That is
agree.
one of my recommendations to us.
And if I may, with just my experience, there have been many years that the different departments work in silos. Okay, and so if we're gonna do, the school choice silo, and then the CTE silo, and then the guide, you know what I mean? It's.
So if I, you did a great job at bringing something forward the other day, right, at my reviewing. I come from a practice, and I can speak because I've worked with Dr. Rodriguez in the past. We come from much more of an integrated approach. If there's a situation, we pick up the phone, you walk down the hall, let's resolve this, and I think Robin sees that's how I work in the building. We're all over the place. And why? Because it has to be an integrated approach.
Right.
It's not ego. It goes back to the very early slides. It's about the kids.
Exactly.
And if we don't, once you lose sight of that, then it becomes personality and other items. It's about children and academic achievement and learning for all, period. It's public education. I don't mean to be, but that's what's true. That is what we do, okay? So it's not a practice that's supported, and I will say, all I see is very positive receptiveness of us integrating and working together.
Great.
I have to say there hasn't been pushback recently, so this needs to be refined and better. We need a choice manual, right? Only to make it easier for you as parents to have a better understanding as well. Does that help? I put on that lens as if I don't know anything. It makes it easier when I look at things
Right,
that way.
and interested community
Tabula
members.
rasa, make it clean.
Right.
Right, I have to look at things as if I don't know.
Right.
So if I don't know, how do you really know how to navigate this? Makes it a little challenging.
Right.
Now add to the fact que yo no hablo inglés. Ahora yo tengo que leerlo en inglés, pero yo no puedo leerlo, no puedo hablarlo, eh?
Right.
And are we building that capacity in our bilingual personnel in order to communicate that as well to our other language learners who are a growing population in our county?
Oh, that one slide you showed us, was it 45% at Bluffton High? Maybe Bluffton, some.
It was Bluffton,
No,
middle,
middle.
Bluffton L, one of the two
45%,
schools, yes.
Right, so no, there's that whole
That's
information that has to be given to
Right.
those that
And
don't
it's
speak.
a capacity
right.
skill of building that within our liaisons as well.
Yeah, Earl,
Yeah. Who make a decision for algebra 1 in those schools? Is that the principal or the district?
Mel, I apologize, Earl. I want to say it's a principal based on the AccuPlacer. If it was from the district, from my side, I am going to push a principal to take away barriers to help children excel. That is my core, right? And that's who I am. But the principal is the leader on their campus. But here's the other side to that. If I have 100 kids who are not on grade level, but I have only 5 who can meet the algebra, where am I going to put my teacher? So that's what makes it really hard for a principal. Who am I serving? Right? So Whale Branch Middle sends children to Whale Branch Early College. So are there better solutions for that? Could we do a virtual model that takes a teacher who's a key person, I could send that out to more schools, right? So what you're driving the bus to is a reality that I may not be able to fund it to keep it live as a principal. What resources can I piggy onto? Right? And those principals, we're very, very lucky that they get along. We're very lucky that they get along, that relationship can happen, right? So, or do we look at another way of making it more accessible for kids? And that's one of my recommendations for us is to look at a virtual franchise for us as a district. The first year is free. Well, I like free.
we do too.
Yeah, I like free. Free is good effectively, right?
Right. Okay, thank you.
All right, let me just go back. Come on, little mouse. So secondary, all right, so let's go down to instructional programs. So these are some of the recommendations that, looking at. And transformative assessments is basically a formative assessment model. That's all that is right there, in order to have a bank of questions that are standard-based to help teachers create formative assessments, so that they could be charged with the learning in their classroom, driving it a little more than just waiting on map. And at a high school level, you don't map. So you as a biology teacher, everything's on your plate. Make it happen. It's a hard one, right? Developing automaticity with math facts, that was just access about the reality at a young age. Developing that skill set that the kids know, times tables. It's relationship with numbers. Order of operations is everything. It's just a little software that shows that. Traditional versus Montessori preschool. It's some research on that for the development of the children. Because one of my recommendations is, I go to another slide, is going to be providing some training for our Montessori schools, early Montessori and early ages, because it is a sound area and it is actually something that's been asked from the community. iReady, and I'm going to ask maybe Melissa, do you want to take a moment? I'll bring it up. Sure.
So we have a pilot going on in 3 of our elementary schools with iReady, but we have, if you've done some homework or know a little bit about it already, it can be very large. So we've drilled down into, I think, what is our current need, what we would like to do. So our 3 schools are Joseph Shanklin Elementary School, Whale Branch Elementary School, and Mossy Oaks Elementary School. We did the work to talk with the principals and people ahead of time, so there was buy-in. We met with the teachers beforehand, but starting in January, so it's new, fresh, in all of those elementary schools and classrooms, iReady is a piece of their workshop. This is both for ELA and math. So, when you picture that beautiful workshop model, the teacher is still doing whole group grade level instruction based on the standards. When students go forth and work and the teacher pulls their first small group, one group of kiddos would be doing iReady for that 15 minutes. So it's just 15 minutes a day in both reading and in math. What we are drilling down to is we want to confirm that it's standards-based instruction, so it ties neatly back to our standards. We want to make sure that it fits inside of the workshop model, so it doesn't hijack instruction, so we still want ample time for them to be reading and writing authentically, or in math, they still need time with manipulatives and to do other math things. So we've really focused in on this one component of iReady. So those 3 schools have had one training. We have a follow-up scheduled. I am visiting classrooms to look at it in action in hopefully a very authentic way. So, I just want to see how it's working. I think in both ways we'll get data from it. So, who does it work well for? Which teachers struggled, all of this will be part of the message. And then what we can also do is that we get to look at, so what was our growth and achievement? It's an ish, it's hard to do return on investment in education, but we can approximate by saying, so what was our growth between fall and winter? What was our growth between winter and spring? So then we have our own map data on top of the assessment data that iReady provides. So that's kind of the gist of the pilot, what we're looking at.
So you're just doing it in these 3 elements, Shanklin,
Yes.
Mossy Oaks, and Whale Branch, and you're doing it within their regular class. What's it replacing?
Exact path.
Exact path.
Tony,
What was the criteria for choosing those 3 schools?
looking at the performance as well, and that they weren't overloaded with other programs, right?
Was demographics part of the consideration?
The performance of the schools was part of the consideration, and that they didn't have overload of replication of too many other programs. So one school that we wanted to bring in, they're already on a scholastic school. They're working replication of practice. Plus they have 2 other groups of volunteers coming in, about 60 volunteers coming in doing reading. So although their data may have showed greater need, too many interventions are there already. That actually ends up creating chaos, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Another one-
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is it school-wide or is it just grade level specific?
School-wide.
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 Yes, sorry.
The licensing is the pilot part at a 0 cost. We did have to bring in some PD to build the capacity of the teachers, okay?
So,
Because if they can't do a software without some
yeah,
training.
K through 5.
Yes. Yes, Kate.
So as part of your comparison, you know, you said you could do spring or fall to winter. Will you also compare to schools that didn't have it? I mean,
We could, but
Yeah,
then we'll
we
then
can
have
would
to-
you look at
That is the
that?
plan to approximate, and that's
Yeah.
also why we
Yeah.
like the diversity of the schools that were chosen, because we have a school that didn't have a lot of turnover, so there's this stability of teachers, you know, so what impact did that have? Or we get to hear from the brand new teacher, how did this help, right? Like, the data that you get from this, you know, so we are looking at both the quantitative and qualitative. They've already received a survey from me around that diagnostic, because that's really what we're just diving in. They have
Just
that
finished.
finished, so we're breaking it into chunks, and again, visiting, checking in, running like reports, and we're doing it from a positive stance of support, because we all know how hard it is to be a teacher. But you know, you're excited to see what happens, because if we can get something in that just little bit, that 15 minutes, but it gives us really nice data and it connects back to our standards.
So is it aligned with what the mini lesson the teacher is doing? So let's say the teacher's doing, okay,
So
help me
we're-
out here.
Yeah, no, yeah, I get what you're saying.
So is it
It could-
more because, you know, they take that diagnostic and then it's prescriptive? Okay, this is what you need to work on. So are those 15 minutes aligned with what the teacher's doing the mini lesson on?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
So it's really pretty much just remediation in some cases.
Right, and acceleration.
And acceleration in some
Exactly.
cases.
We want to dabble in that, but we want to wait for the teachers to be ready for that, because part of iReady, you know, it's probably what appeals to me about iReady, but I also know that means it's another layer for teachers. So, you know, part of iReady is also about, you still have to confer with the kids about where they were. So we want to solidify how this works in your rotation. You know, you get your groove around it. We did talk about that a lot. You know, we gave them suggestions, and we did front load before the break in hopefully a really positive way
Yeah.
to say, like, this is coming, here's some things to think about, what works for you. But that is the goal that I've talked with all the principals about, and I mentioned it when we met we got to see all the teachers. I've been able to see
Yeah.
all the teachers at least twice around this, to say, you know, when you're ready for that,
Yeah.
let us know, because
Yeah.
then we can see what that part looks like, because I do think that's important, that during this pilot time to dive into how well does it match our instruction. But right now they're going to be on their learning pathways. We're solidifying how do we interconference with the kids when needed so that we can meet their needs, and open back up the pathways.
And if this is successful, this is something that you would hope to roll out for the entire district?
It may possibly, we don't know what that looks like yet,
We
but I mean, I
haven't
don't wanna
appealed to
close
that
the
level.
door
We
on
don't
anything.
want to close the door yet.
So how much better is it than Exact Path? Because I don't know Exact Path.
That's actually the conversation we were having driving here.
I am gonna dig a little bit more. iReady does have a lot more independent data and research, like What Works Clearinghouse has reviewed it, you know, but it's a bigger company, so that stands to reason. So initially, you have that as a backing, you know, they've had more large-scale study reports done, which means that outside independent white papers have happened. But we're also gonna do a side-by-side of
Comparison
Exact
of
Path and this, because Exact Path, we're still in it, but we will soon enough be making the decision, is like that the thing, right? So like, you know, we're gonna be running out of that contract next year, or at the end of next year, and so now we're just trying to front load, you know, what works best.
And we already
Be
have a
more-
pretty strong contract with iReady with students with special needs.
With
right?
sped student population is the only population that there is an existing contract, yes.
But isn't it also used for MTSS?
Well, picking up from part of the anti, for a tiered, yes.
It could be, right. And
Like
SPED,
tier 3?
Yeah, the tier 3.
and
That
SPED
comes off that
uses it.
sped.
Comes off that sped money?
Yes, ma'am, I have not picked it up.
Yeah, okay.
SPED uses it much more, so you can also, this can be a complete, this could be your whole package. This could be your tier 1, this could be your assessment. So SPED uses it, they actually get books that go alongside it, so they use it as, we are just piloting this one component of it.
Or in the skill set development and standards practice.
Yeah, are you piloting it because of the skill level of the students at this school, and the teachers have the choice to select what time they're gonna do this 15-minute
Within their class,
segment
yes.
within their class?
So it, you know, so when you go into elementary schools and you see they have their rotation schedule up, so they do, but it's all happening inside of either the ELA block, which is workshop, or the math block, which is also workshop. So there's times when you have them together, whole group, but when the moments where they're independent learners, we're trying to schedule time to every kid, every day for 15 minutes. It
And
is
there's either or both, ELA, math?
Both. They have a curriculum in both.
Okay.
If I was getting a pilot mill, I wanted both for free.
yeah,
Okay.
it's free. so
I
you can
wanted to
see
see,
what
yeah,
works.
so it's like, which way do you go
Sure.
if we're gonna have that opportunity?
Yeah.
And it is aligned with our standard. That was one of the first things that was reviewed, because
It
we
is
don't wanna
not.
do a pilot
Something
and
like
lose
that.
instruction,
Right.
right? So
Yeah.
there is an alignment with our standards, so that we weren't taken away from opportunities for our children to learn.
And is your strategy with this, jumping ahead of the tier 3?
Right,
But-
right,
But will become tier 3,
Yeah.
right.
but have already been,
Yeah, so there's
Covered.
all of these
Yeah.
diverse needs, so even if it's this independent learning pathway, that just might be the best thing. I mean,
Yeah.
teachers will then, we have access to the teacher toolbox,
Yeah.
so like for free,
Nice.
which is nice. You know, so there's these other parts that we're like, dabble in it, let us know what you think, but yeah, if we can get this and the accelerating side of it, so then for all
Yeah,
kids,
yeah.
it looks like,
yeah.
wow, this
Yeah.
is something, and then we're valuing that side of the teacher
The
where
teacher skill set, yeah.
Yes.
you still need to sit next to the kiddo and talk about what their data reports are saying and how they're doing. So far, I've actually, I mean, I was kind
It's
of
been very
excited.
positive. I
It
have to
has-
share, because the principal, I get the emails.
Good.
And I feed back to the emails, that's, yeah. It's been very positive. It has been positive. And all I can do is, I have to be a cheerleader,
Yeah.
right? My job is to be the cheerleader, to say thank you and, you know, let's keep pushing forward, to say, let us know, keep me in.
Right.
So another program that we're looking at as well is Reading Plus. This link just gives you it's a little research on it. Again, as Melissa pushed forward, Reading Plus is a program that has vetted research, right? It has white papers, it has technical papers tied to it. It's not something that someone just thought of, right? It has a history of success. And we're looking at this more at the middle school, right? At the middle school level, and why we don't have a structured reading program as a district.
And that's a concern that I have too, because with the reading, I don't see where kids are learning the short and long sounds of vowels and the sound of letters in their reading. My little niece came from Colorado after being there for a semester, and now she's at the elementary school here. And when she came, she was sounding out her letters and her vowels and trying
Well,
to
you were in my car while we were driving.
pronounce these words.
Yes.
And then now she don't do that anymore. And then I'm at the high school level, and we have out reading, and then the kids, when they get stuck, it's like they don't even try to sound out the words. They wait for people to tell them what the word is instead of trying to sound out the word. So in our reading initiative, are we going back to teaching the kids the phonics and the long vowels and the short vowels, and how to put those letters together and come up with the word?
Absolutely. You know, so we've talked about this, but so balanced literacy does include that. You know, but I know, and we named, because we did an academic audit of all of our elementary schools, and then we looked at data, and we really drilled in. And so as a district, we like a couple years ago, we got to the point where we got to all be very honest and say, hey, we're not doing that part well, you know, inside of balanced literacy. And then that's going to leave some kids behind, because that's how some kids are going to learn how to read, you know, but everybody needs it a little bit. you know, and that's your foundational skills, back to those like automaticity with math facts. To your point, what do we want kids to do first? We want them to look at the letters and sound what makes sense, like not guess, you know? So that is a goal. We did some pilots there with some programs, so we have some things very consistently now, but teachers are still approximating because this is new for them. So I do think that that's important to name. But where it should be included everywhere is within your guided reading group. So based on what level reader you are, there is a portion of that day that's dedicated to like, those are the sounds, those are the things that are happening now because that's where they are as a reader. So that's like that individual small group. But then we've also pulled into every single one of our elementary schools, there is a whole group component. So like the 18th, we're having another training where all people from all over the district are coming together because we're really trying to support the learning curve that's happening. Because to be truthful, if we really think about the reading wars and the implications, many of our teachers probably were not taught to read using phonics, and or were not taught to teach using phonics.
Teachers.
The whole language.
Yeah, they were like writing the whole language.
teachers.
So
My children.
right.
So
I mean, so that's a real reality because now as an educator,
we're
how was I
retraining.
set up for success? I didn't learn that way. I wasn't taught that way, and so they need like the PD and the support and the training. So that's been ongoing. We have a dedicated part of all of our coaches meetings that's just around this. We're reading more articles, and I have to be truthful. I mean, there's still there's still pushback. I mean, I still get random articles from teachers telling me, whole language is the right thing, and you address that in the nicest way possible. But that is the long game. So like we have to share that instruction in early childhood.
One of the things I want to say, and we've spoken, I think Ashley was in it, that whole language came as a result of Teachers College at Columbia to counteract Bank Street College. Bank Street College is the elementary college. That is the cachet college, that and Harvard, are the two top research universities in the country actually for elementary education. Teachers College at Columbia, and I'm a Columbia student, and I attended TCA. I could say it created very strong, separate from Sylvia Ashton Warner's work. They created this model to be competitive with Bank Street College.
But here's the beautiful thing. So Lucy Calkins has now crafted a very well-written essay that talks about the value of phonics.
Right.
So
So she's
that's
looking at her
very
work.
new. Yeah.
No different than Virginia Collier's work with language acquisition. She went back and rewrote her papers.
Yep.
That's part of someone who's a good researcher.
Yeah.
All right. So Reading Plus is at the middle schools, the second pilot that we're utilizing. We have 3 schools as well. You want to point 3 schools out.
So Reading Plus is at Leeds Island Middle School, all in. Everyone is doing it. H.E. McCracken is part of the pilot, and they did a select group, and then there's the ability to open and grow, and then all of our children that go into Right Choices will get this instruction, and then they also will maintain access to it no matter which school they go back to afterwards. So let me just geek out a little bit around this because I'm kind of excited about this one as far as middle school goes. So the science behind Reading Plus is quite fascinating. So what they researched and to build this is they actually tracked eye movement, like an absurd amount of time to make it be this authentic study, like this white paper and so now when kids take the test for them, they're able to judge the words per minute that they read, their comprehension, their fluency, and then they get this overall score. So the data that we're seeing at the middle school level is kind of fun because you're going to see the 6th grader and then it's going to drill down for you. These are the number of words they need to read per minute. This is their grade level for comprehension. This is their grade level for vocabulary knowledge. So Reading Plus will actually deal with, again, our struggling readers, but even our excelling readers. But what it does first is it builds your fluency and stamina. So those, right? So those of you that have taught children to read, or you've seen this, you know how when kids are learning to read, you give them that little box, so they just focus in on that word, and then the box becomes the bookmark, so then they get faster. So this actually does this again for them. it's like Netflixy when they log in, so they get to pick this genre, these things that interest them. Part of the pre-assessment is also their interest survey, so that's setting them up for it. And then remember, the program now knows what's their overall readability, what's their vocabulary, where's their words per minute. So then when they select, the children get to select like graphic, whatever they like. It's
Graphic
more,
novels.
Yeah, it could be graphic novels, it could be space,
What we
football,
call comic
sports.
books.
Yeah.
Right.
They get
Bottom
to,
line.
Yeah.
right, they get to go in there and read that. It's at their readability to build their fluency and success. But like we were getting some emails from, so again, like remember the without internet, they took the diagnostic, this is all very new. So we have kids that have only done 3 lessons that have already increased their words per minute by 9.
By 9 words.
You know, so, but what's fascinating to me about it is, you know, the reading folks know that fluency and comprehension work together. So even though this really focuses on fluency, it does give you comprehension questions. That's how you grow, you know. So they align to our standards beautifully. It also does vocabulary lessons. But What Works Clearinghouse showed a plus of 2, which is hard for What Works Clearinghouse to get that kind of score, with all of their reports, because the fluency gets so strong that their comprehension improves. So our goal there is 40 lessons, and
And how long are these lessons?
15 minutes.
15 minutes, same thing.
thing.
15
So they're,
minutes.
in these schools, they're doing them in their language arts class, 15
No,
minutes a day?
that's part of the reason why these
Okay.
schools were selected. So,
Separate reading book.
because you know, it's me. So I was like, that was a little bit of a heartache. We only have 60 minutes-ish for ELA, you know, when you think about transitions. So both of the schools have a separate block of time that was embedded in their schedule. You know, so Ladies Island Middle School had an independent reading time.
Right.
That's 25 minutes. So 15 minutes this, they can still get their hands in their novel, what they're reading. And so that's embedded, that's attached to, so that's why like every content area teacher is using it, because at some point in the day, everybody has this extra time to read.
Extra time to read. Yeah.
Yes, so that's in there. This school has
The
an
math teachers
advisory
are
time.
loving it because they don't have to sit there and make sure the kids are reading.
What's really funny, that is true.
Yeah, I know.
Like, no, I thought like other contents would be like, what? And they were like,
No,
no,
they're
this
happy.
is awesome. And, you know, we want to see, because a lot of their research says that it's very engaging for kids, you know, so we're interested in to see like how that translates. And then this school has an advisory time. So part of it's reading plus for some of the kids, and then the other part is like some of that social emotional, some guidance, the other stuff that they need. So it's yeah. So at this point, we're piloting in addition to the reading block. Although if it works out, we will have to think about where does it fit.
So a third item to look at is also no reading that we're gonna push out to principals, but this pilot will be free. We're just pushing out the website.
Okay.
And what it does help is self-correct writing.
Yeah.
And we're not looking at trying to get a pilot with it right now, because it does have a free page the principals can push out to their ELA teachers, so there's accessibility. It's called No Reading. I will share with you, I've utilized it with kids in middle and high school, and it is a gift.
So what does it do?
So we're writing an essay.
Right, okay.
It is intuitive software in the back to help me with my grammar. My relationship to is versus is you or are you.
Should have,
Shoulda.
instead of should have.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should've, I should've
A teacher
known.
actually create lessons, there are grammar lessons and writing lessons. It's intuitive to tell you if we're following from the prompt. You can read it, we've gone off to a far land. If the prompt is designed from the teacher that we're writing about cars, and I start writing about girls. Alright, so it is an intuitive program. The intuitive part is not part of the free
Right.
landscape at all. Right, the free landscape lends you for grammar and writing and spelling and self-correction of sentences, similar to what Microsoft Word does. But at least it's another tool right now that the kids will start looking and utilizing and embedding as a practice. I just wanted to pitch that out to take a look at that. So-
This right here. What do you have in there for high school? Because right now with the Newsella, that's good because it gives a variety of articles for different content areas. But to have the kids to reflect on those articles is like pulling teeth and nail. And then now what they've done is you can limit it so that they can only do it once or twice. Well, they done found a way how to change the reading level so that they get multiple choices to check, and then by the time they change the reading level each time, then I did the quiz at the end with the multiple choice. They have figured out which answers go with what because they have taken it so many times.
Yes,
So
and
it needs
that's
to
a
be
flaw of the
child-proof.
software.
Yeah.
The goal would be that Reading Plus would be 6 through 12. Because actually Reading Plus program lends itself to a continuum of grade and a diversity of material. So the kid's not going through replication, but helping the students to acquire better reading. So that would be the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal would be to, if necessary, have a reading class at the high school level. That should be separate from, not embedded into the ELA class, into the English 1 and English 2 class, but more of a support class for kids. So my goal would be that Reading Plus is available for a high school level.
When you say your goal, what are you anticipating?
Money makes the world
End
go round.
game.
Remember that
Other than
I forgot
money.
that movie, I forgot what it
And
was.
let's plan without the money.
Oh, okay.
What's your goal?
Have you identified things that you can delete
Yes, ma'am.
so that we can?
So we had a conversation about Naviance, right? That's one of the items that we're looking at deleting, which is the company itself is Hobson. Looking at Rosetta Stone is potentially being discussed right now, but I need to have a replacement for my English language learners because they're utilizing Rosetta Stone strongly. So we're looking at maybe Achieve 3000. We've gotten some input in from principals regarding that. So we are looking at other items that may be a little more cost effective and also being a little more stringent on how we handle the licensing, right? Be a little more oversight from that. And we were having a conversation driving here that, and I pitched part of that last night at the board meeting. So we have X amount of licenses at a school. If the school needs more, they contact the district district has some on reserve. We just don't buy a blanket amount. This way we can meet the needs and still lend accessibility, but we could be a little more stringent on our operations, okay? So we've looked at that, and we haven't forgotten math. So with a new math adoption coming down, I have asked to have principals involved with the math adoption, we've had conversations about looking at what would it look like if we press down more algebraic thinking earlier. So they're going to be sitting at the math adoption table at the end of the month, and their input would be paramount for me with regard to which math adoption we take. So I've asked Mona Lisa to be part of it, and Pat, who both of them were math teachers, be part of the math adoption for us. And then also to share with input from the teachers, but from the perspective of someone also who's an administrator and been in the classroom, looking at the resources. So I'm trying to broaden that, who's helping us select. Does that make sense? Not just sending something out. No, we need input, and I want input from teachers and the administrators. I don't want to hold you much longer. So there's a few more things. So I think it's important that we look back at my little kids and remember that it's important with regard to, it'll load up. I provided early childhood information. It has a continuum of research that came forward, and it shows the earlier stages of iReady for the younger kids on this continuum and our wish list of what we'd like to see as a school district, early training, early education for all children. And I think there was a conversation that came up last night. I was very happy to hear that. Looking at our middle child, there was a support reading with regard to some of the initiatives in that domain, and as I planned this, and what I can do, since I don't have access on Google, I couldn't give Robin rights. I'd like to be able to get this so that you have rights to look at whatever you want to take a look at this as board members, right? So if you want to get familiar with the information, I think it's important. So I have to work that out on how to make that happen for us. Either go directly to you or work on, maybe there's a folder that we can create for our board members if you want to read information. We can do that? In board
You can
docs?
send me the information, I can put it in board
Board-
docs.
It's a lot. I don't.
Well, they have a library in board docs.
Oh, they do?
Yes,
Okay.
and so I
So-
can create it and I can put it in board docs
Okay.
as a library or
So-
as reference.
When I get rights to give you my folders, then we could just push the, okay, all right. So one thing, and I won't belittle, but I do want to speak a little bit more about CTE. One of the things we're working hard at is looking at our programs and looking at the economic structure here in South Carolina and Beaufort. So as we identify choice programs, are they economically sound? I've spent a lot of time with Karen in that conversation, and she is involved with local economic, structure here. Are we putting in place what needs to be put in place in order to help grow our community? North and abroad, I'm having conversation looking at cybersecurity. We're also looking at global logistics at Battery Creek, right? Cybersecurity, looking probably at Beaufort High. But I also have the idea of separate, talking of a choice program, fine and performing arts, looking at North and South of the board in order to lend that opportunity to have that as a high school. What are we doing to meet those needs of children? So that's a conversation that I'm having slowly, because there's a lot of talent here in both domains, if that makes sense. And I don't think we're pulling on our community, one of my earlier slides, in order to build the capacity of our kids. So we are taking advantage of looking at the economic structure. These few slides talk about it. I think, at least on this slide, to recognize the benefits of career technical education for children. To me, if it does anything for children, and there's two things I need to take from a high school principal perspective. One, technical work requires high-level reading. That's why I need reading teachers at the high school level. And I'm going to prepare you to do HVAC. That manual is not an easy book. And by the way, a book now for my Honda that I just purchased is not an easy book. When did adaptive cruise control become a norm? Adaptive cruise control. Okay, I'm looking under C, it's cruise control. But we have to build that reading stamina of children in order to handle the technical knowledge necessary and the stamina to get through these technical. So we did a Lexile analysis in my office, Karen and I, on reading with regard to our career technical areas. Everything is 11th graded up. Everything. There are no low Lexiles. I think 11, 13 was one of the lowest ones. Okay, that's basically 10th grade into 11th grade reading ability for a child. So trade school requires higher level capability of children. So we have to demystify college bound or career. Right? So that was one of my last ones on children. Just going forward, this was some summer slide results. The state has cut back on some funding for summer reading. So one of our recommendations is consideration for summer reading funding. and I'll share with you, Melissa comes to, Mary comes to ask me things, and I'm like, Melissa, you need books, let's buy books for kids. I will spend money out of our division for books for children, more so than maybe other supplies, and I have to share that with you, because in my mindset, I want the kids to have books. Right? So it's positive data. The results are positive for our children being able to have the opportunity to attend school during the summertime. So imagine what year-round school would do. It's not bad. I went there. Okay? This is results with regard to Pontus and Fennell results. The summer program is good stuff. It costs about $500,000.
Libraries, do public libraries have summer reading programs?
Why, yes. Go ahead, Melissa. I like Nostrum, she likes the library.
So last year we started a partnership, and we're growing it this year. So they have Summer at Your Library, game board, birth to death. Everyone uses the same game board. And so all of our schools participated. They came to all of our summer reading sites. Like some highlights happened. I mean, and truthfully, Madeline and I kind of did this really quickly at the end. So we are much more aware today. The teachers got an email. You'll see the Beaufort County School District will soon be posting on Facebook, something the library posted about a bookmark contest to build up the excitement behind it. But the libraries came to all of our summer reading sites. The kiddos that participated in that had the card, so they got the rounds of gifts. We are extending it, so I met with the media specialists already. Literacy coaches are happening soon. I'll be back with the media specialist. So it's this idea of like, how can we get the hands more access for kids with books, get everybody to participate, and their summer reading is about 20 minutes a day, makes you a reader, so you just read 20 minutes a day. And then you fill out your little card. There's 51 days that they do. And so if you read 36 of the 51 days, then you get the grand prize, which is a free book, and then the ability to enroll yourself in one of their baskets, which they were great prizes. After 12 days, though, everybody got a tote bag or kaleidoscope. After 24 days, you had a treat coupon that could be used across our county. So we're going to partner with them. We're going to do more videos. We're going to align the communications. But their program grew. I want to give credit. Like, I'm sure that caused more of our kids to read. And it's just this foundational. We do a summer reading thing for all kids, not this. We added to our summer reading camp that we have to do, which is like extended school year. But with all kids, we say read over the summer.
Right.
So now what we're trying to do is mirror each other's message. So the library is the key, and we are sending the message. We're jazzing it up. And when we talk to media specialists, it's like, this is one of those things that more is more. As much as we can get this across, because the summer slide is a real thing that impacts us in great ways. And if we just oversimplify it to, if I'm learning to play the flute or soccer, name anything, and I don't practice it for 10
What
weeks,
happens?
you're not going to be very...
So one of the things that they both have asked is the opportunity for books for the kids. So the kids attending summer slide, we want to make sure they also go home with books, so that it is cross-generational. Books that you will read, books that you have read, pass the books around, right? Get the books in the homes.
I have a
keep in
question
mind,
about that.
currently we're serving kindergarten and up, but with a dip in funding, that we're looking at some different options.
With your summer reading program, what happened with the cards that the kids had to fill out who participated in the library, where it went back to their home schools? What did the schools do with those cards once it went back?
So we actually had a database, so we added it to the libraries. I sent books out to all of the schools, so each school after the fact, so the library had to close it up the end of July, but we don't start back then. So when kids brought their cards to us at the beginning of the year, we had books for them to get their free book, and then we added our numbers to the libraries, or our cards to the library's database.
Okay, another thing I want to suggest is Penn Center. Penn Center have a summer camp. But my nieces went to the summer camp at Penn Center, but I would pick them up early to take them to the library for the summer reading program.
Yeah.
So there was no connection with their summer camp, and I think the district should reach out, because those kids are within our virtual. So reach out to Penn Center and see how you can work with their summer program to engage their kids. And they were right down the street from St. Helena Library and never went to their reading program that they had over there because there was no connection. There was no connection. Another thing is the Battery Creek cluster was left off of the free lunch
From summer?
from the summer at the beginning, and I had to bring it to their attention because the connection was with the local reading facilities in the different communities. And see, Burton Wells Library is still not completed yet, so they omitted Battery Creek cluster because they went to Lobico, they went to St. Helena, and they went to Beaufort, but they did not do Battery Creek cluster because our library at Burton Wells is not completed.
Right.
So keep that in mind when you
I will
start
ask them what their plan is for that, because that's another spot to hand out books. We kind of talked about that, beefing that up.
They did start with the bookmobile after we brought it to their attention, but then the thing was the time that they had the bookmobile was in the morning as opposed to the afternoon when the kids be at Burton Wells.
Yeah.
And one thing more with the libraries that we're looking at the registration, they have that as a check-off box for a library card. Will you allow your child so that we could do campaigns that way as well, pushing that at a point for registration, for student registration?
I want to preface what I want to say by the fact that I think anything we can do to enhance the reading skills is going to be worthwhile. But I want to go back to the summer reading program. And I'm wondering if the summer program would be more successful if it didn't begin right after school's over, and the kids are burned out, the teachers are burned out, you have kids who have not met with a tremendous amount of success, maybe push it back as one model, or another model, maybe do it every other day, alternating days for the entire summer. Because if I use the coaching model, and I have a game in September, I'm not gonna start my practice in June and then give them 6 weeks off and then play the game.
Yeah.
I'm going in, okay, so these are rhetorical questions. Before we look at the data, I just think that perhaps the program was a good program, maybe the placement or the strategy of it could have been.
Well, Tony, you're
different.
actually, and I apologize, you're bridging on a conversation again which led to last week's academic committee, year-round school. Now, that's not something to look at that we could probably execute
No,
without
I
coming here.
understand that, you know, I mean.
But it is a conversation, because that would then, that's a whole,
I just
Yeah,
think that the
change,
data, I
right?
think that the data that's presented here
yeah,
may not really reflect the value of the program.
but the
Program
kids,
were placed in a different section. Let me take back the every alternating day and do it for the whole summer. Let me just go say, when does school begin, in June? I mean, August?
Yeah.
So let's
Yes,
push it
sir.
back 6 weeks from August.
yeah.
And
So we
and
have
I
to-
think the teachers would probably be more appreciative of that as well, because they just finished the school year, they're exhausted.
But
we've talked about it a little bit, because then it's two different funding cycles. So one part we have to consider is the state money that they give us has to be spent.
in this
Um,
window,
Yeah,
and that's majority of our salary.
and
Because
then,
that makes a lot of sense.
yeah, and then what happened was, I think to your point, if we did it longer, this might not have happened. But the first couple of years, we had shorter days, and we went past the 4th of July, and our attendance really dropped
It
after
tanked.
the 4th of July. But we weren't all through July, right? So it ended like a couple weeks after, but then right after the 4th of July, the kiddos weren't, the attendance wasn't as strong. So now we follow the state's guidelines and we get the 96 hours. But to your point, all of this is happening in 16 days. So this data and the percentage of 60-something to 70-something% that maintain the data, they still have 5 weeks off after,
Well, see,
yeah,
let me go back to the coaching model.
right.
Because my philosophy has always been, if you don't improve, if you just maintain, then the person next to you is getting better. So you're really regressing.
Yeah.
So every day you come to practice, you have to get better.
Right, and that is part of why I don't disagree, I would love to open this door and like talk about, but
I
the
think-
funding that goes,
Yeah, I think there should be a discussion
yeah.
of this before we.
but that's why they leave with 8 books that they
Right.
have experience and love and joy around, because, then read those all summer, and that's why we're hoping that we do a better, like, we just keep amping it up as schools, as the district, reminding parents, because sometimes parents don't even, I know, my kids' summers are weirdly busy, for it being summer, and I had to make this effort to be like, am I asking them to read enough? I mean, of course, we sit in labs and read all the time, but now they're learning to read, they have to practice it, so, yeah,
I mean,
I
the
agree.
attendance was one of the first things I looked at when I,
Yeah, the attendance
Yeah.
is an issue, there's no
and
doubt about it.
it dropped.
Yeah, the attendance is an issue, but I think we're talking about changing hearts and minds here. I don't think any program is gonna be the silver bullet.
No,
The hearts and
no,
minds
there
don't
is
be.
no one cure.
I mean,
You're
we're
right,
asking
there is
teachers
no
to
one
do
cure
things
for
differently with that
achievement.
15-minute block of time. They've got to buy into that.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, whatever they're doing, that 15 minutes is,
It's,
they may as well watch television. And I'm not recommending that.
okay. Last few slides. So SPED is, I know, something that we've had conversation that's being revisited. We're pushing forward not to have as many multi-categorical classrooms. And looking at the opportunity, for better training for support facilitators, better scheduling for the SPED classrooms. I brought that up already. But I think one of the main things was looking at the categories and not mixing everything together in one classroom. So that's being realigned for the upcoming academic school year. Our ESOL, we're taking a close look at the performance of our ESOL students. Are we being effective? Are we getting what we need? And what is our graduation rate? How's this looking? So we're just starting now to touch into this area. This is taking a little more time for you to understand. There's a lot of IEPs that need to be reviewed in order to get a better understanding where students can be placed, how we can work this better. And we have a proposal put together for the amount of teachers to add on for SPED for this coming year. With that is basically the triangle that we're looking at in our division of the student learner in the middle, literacy, student learning support programs on one side, and our student support services on the other, in order to have outcomes for student learning. That's my presentation, ladies and gentlemen.
Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent. So then, obviously, as we're entering into the budget season,
That's why I
we're
want
gonna see the alignment between the requests.
Yes,
And there's-
and what I just put forward to you, that's why
Right.
I wanted us to be able to have some healthy conversation on initiatives that we're going forward,
Yeah,
from birth to 5,
right,
5 all the way through,
yeah.
okay? They have a lot of responsibility,
Mhm.
right? The goal would be that we have on that side, those who can handle the numeracy conversation in this as well.
Right.
right? And then having that opportunity for the STEM and science building,
Mhm.
right? That's, would be part of the budget conversation.
Right.
So now we have a team of people looking at literacy, numeracy, inquiry, and the resiliency part is the professional development that's tied to build teams. Okay?
Are there any, yep,
So I like all of the aspects, and I was wondering for the support services and the supporting students and learning support programs, you talked about academics a lot, and that all sounded great, but what I find prevents most students from being able to participate in my academics is the inability to have intrinsic motivation and to be able to participate in a structured environment. So what behavioral supports specifically are you looking at to strengthen the teacher's, the behavior? So in high school, what are you thinking of that could help us to help the students to, outside of, I can share you today, I am still working on the learning environment for my biology CP class, and we are 2 weeks and a bit into the year. And the kids will yell out, just write them up. So what outside of the, I write you up for disciplinary action, you're outside of the classroom to be disciplined, you come back, you have not changed your behavior. Outside of that model,
So
what is being,
I don't want to bridge into school discipline management, but a recommendation from my side is, if you look at the work of Castle, if we can as a district, Castle puts out a curriculum for social emotional development, that we should be looking to have a curriculum that's utilized and integrated, that can be worked with guidance counselors, utilizing our guidance counselors more for the area of building me to, I could work with you more as a student in your classroom, you're my intervention as the guidance counselor. That's part of the work that Jerry has presented to us. So I think that as well being put in place, working more with our, outside with our community and our parents. Right? Now I'm bridging over to the back into the school site, but I think it's very important that a parent, I don't care how old you are, right? That communication to that parent comes back that these are the expectations for my class in order for this student to go forward and do. But the other side of that is also looking at curriculum that addresses frontal lobe development, executive functions, right? So that spontaneity, that swirl, the acting out, that's also frontal lobe development. So we're looking into that and executive functions, right? For being part of a curriculum that we bring forward and developing that in kids. It's very successful.
and,
So I'm bridging that. That's,
Mary, isn't, Karen McKenzie has been working with the group.
yes.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
So they're actually meeting today, so the behavior group are meeting today, and they're working on the interventions, aligning our district classification of behavioral incidents into what the state is required at level 1, 2, and 3, and doing a better job at aligning consequences so we have consistency, but then with that, what interventions can be put in place, and being a little more supportive with RTI, because if I continue at being someone who's acting out in the classroom, what are the interventions that are being put in place in RTI? Are we meeting my needs? I'm gonna do everything I need to get out of your class if I can't do the work. That goes back to Erica Young's work, or in helplessness. I'm gonna do everything I have to do to get away from it. Flight, right? Fight or flight. I'm gonna flight. So,
That should be presented, I think that's going to be presented to this, to our committee in February or March.
I think,
So it's a
yeah.
district-wide look at it being, the same across the district, so.
yes,
um,
but the resources is also part of that as well.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad to see that you have ACEs up there and trauma-informed care,
You see,
because that
yes.
goes back to the behavior change.
Yes, and
Because
that
generational
is,
poverty, and you got to change the mindset and have the parents to look at themselves and see the impact that they're having on their own kids, because it's coming trickling right on down
well,
in
something
the household,
I was
in that
hoping
generation.
that I would hear but didn't hear is that I was hoping I'd hear that we would have more people in the building to help with those things on a more individual basis. We have
Yes.
one BMS, behavioral management specialist, at the whole Beaufort High School. And
but we also have administrators. So I come from a school of 2,504 kids. I didn't have a BMS. So I think it's about building the capacity set
That's what she said.
and using our people better and maybe putting more tools in place because, so let's speak of ACEs just quickly. That creates an imprint on your DNA genetically, right? Of generations of impact they have found on research. Unfortunately, they did the research on rats, but that's what the research has done. Genetically imprints DNA. There's a lot of work that we need to do as a society. So yes, I could see more people in, but are we also giving the people who I have better skill sets and better tools before, and then let's bring more people in, so they're also at that capacity. Because more of not the right thing just gives me more calories.
Yes, I think that's what the point is. You can align the discipline rules in every school. If the discipline rules aren't working in any school for the targeted group that you're talking about. And I think her approach is, we're gonna build a different kind of culture in the schools, period. From the community standpoint, from the teacher's standpoint, and all of this would, it's probably not gonna go away this year or next year, that same child. But eventually, you're gonna have a different kind of modeling in the school, in the classroom.
I'm asking them to look at that on discipline by actually time of event as well. From the amount of years that I've worked with kids, I'll share one. Did you eat today? Did you? Right. So after I've been cussed out, called everything in the world, and that's okay. It's only words, right? Let's go to my office. Did you eat? What a change that does. Because now that same kid comes back and has a different conversation because the blood sugar's off, they haven't eaten. As a high school, I'm not going on that free line.
Yeah, right.
Because there's a whole other cachet to this.
Right.
There's a whole other cachet to status of where I am. So it lends, is it a compliance model or is it a model that we want to put in place to develop understanding and growth?
Well, and I do.
I don't,
Yeah.
and it's a hard one. And this is a hard
It's very hard.
conversation for us to have.
Mhm.
It's not an easy conversation to have. Because it really means, what am I doing and am I doing it right?
Right. But it's a necessary conversation because this has been a reason why people leave, why teachers leave.
Right.
So Nancy, I just want to say though, you're right, but I
She
think
is.
it's a combination. And last week when we had the guidance meeting, there is going to be a budgetary request for more guidance counselors. Dr. Stratos just said there is going to be a budgetary request for more special ed teachers. So I think it's a realization that, yes, you have to do everything that was just said and we have to look at it from that time, but we also know that in some cases, you need more adults in the building. So it's gonna have to be a work in progress.
Or my adults, are we,
And building the capacity of those adults that are already there, absolutely.
And
It's a
then-
multi-pronged solution.
Yeah.
Right.
it is,
Right.
it is.
Right. I just wanted to give, before we pack up, you guys came in later, any public comments, you guys, that you want to bring up, that's not related to the agenda? Yes,
I wanted
please.
to talk, I sent the committee concerns about the grading and assessments that we have in our district right now with the high school level. Any content that is not in the course subject, teachers have the discretion at how many times they want to count an examination for that course. And to me, that impacts the grade point average, that impacts our graduation lineup, valedictorian, salutatorian. Those kinds of things are impacted when you allow individuals, and it's subjective, the way that it is now, but it's not consistent across the district how we do things. Now, we are aligned with what's formative assessments, examples, what summative examples look like or what they should be, and we have that all neat, and you can put that in your syllabus. But for an individual teacher with a non-EOC course to have the flexibility or the discretion at the number of times that they want to count an examination for a course, that is inconsistent and it's not fair.
Excuse them, right.
So It's a student progression, look at the visit. One of the first things I looked when I came here, I couldn't accept that some of the tools were utilized for grades. I mean, formative tools were utilized for grades. Is that the state statute allows it? South Carolina, I'm surprised. Because the formative tools are to drive instruction, not to, and the summative is just summary on performance, right? But the state actually allows that distribution high.
Right.
And I was very much surprised. But with that, there should be nothing that knocks a kid's grade down a letter grade.
Or builds it up, is what you're
Or
saying.
builds it up.
Or they are,
Right,
yes.
right, it goes either way, right? You did this exam, and you went from a C to an A.
And I'm gonna
How's
count
that
it twice.
possible? Right, so
Right.
what you're asking for is a suggestion from the district to say that there should be a minimum of X amount of grades, right, per week.
But we already got that, because you got somebody down there that's monitoring it, because your principal will email you and tell you you don't have enough assessments, or you don't have
Okay.
enough formative grades. But the thing is, when we're getting ready to finish out the semester, and we have the discretion as to how many times to count our exam, and you count it as a summative grade, but I can count it once, or I can count it twice, and for geometry or for any non-EOC course. The teacher
The
has
same
the
exam.
discretion. Yeah. And then the thing is, it may not even be the same exam, because if my exam is different from Bluffton exam or Hilton Head exam or Buford High or even Well Branch, we all given a different exam for the same content, but then they may count it twice south of the Broad, we may count it once north of the Broad. There is no consistency for any non-EOC course, because normally it would have been, an examination would be 20%. And everybody would know that. This would
Right.
count 20% for the
Yes.
final exam for this course.
Yes.
But now it's like, it's going in as a summative grade, and I can count it once or I can count it twice or something.
That's academic integrity.
Yeah, academic integrity, but
That's
don't
academic
the
integrity.
departments,
Yes.
don't the departments of the individual schools have their own system, and you can't count it twice in both schools.
Was that in writing? Did you see that?
Yeah.
Does that come out?
I was told that by my department head,
Okay.
that I had the
You could-
discretion, and I'm the only one
Yeah.
that teaches my content in my class, in my building. So
That's-
I reached out to the other schools, Bluffton and Hilton Head, and I asked them, share with me your exam so I can use it, because I'm the only one teaching this content in my school. And then he told me, he said, well, you can count it once or you can count it twice, it's up to you.
No,
I'm like, really? And he said, that's not,
that's a school site scenario that I could
already.
share
We did.
with
During
principals,
the
that is not
grading
best
and
practice.
assessment, and I just, in the AR. and
yeah, because
I
if the
don't know
impact
that-
of it is too great for us to have such inconsistency.
Yeah, I didn't hear what Kathy had.
You know the AR for the grading and
Yes.
assessment
Would
is
you-
still being worked on?
Yes,
And so
that
I
might be in
think,
place.
I think it's in there, and so we have to look at that wording. Would you
Okay.
ask Wendy, or
Yeah,
not
we have the
Wendy?
note,
Yeah, thank you.
okay?
Because we did look at, we
Yeah.
were
It's
talking about
academic
that.
Because
integrity.
Bernadette brought it
Because
up.
I know we
Right.
use that language in that AR.
But this is the second semester that I have had the freedom, or the third semester, that I've had the freedom to have the discrepancy of counting my exam once or twice.
I don't think you're doing it twice.
No, I'm not doing
I
it
don't know if you're doing it
twice. How
twice.
many other people may be doing it twice?
Right.
Because there is
In
no
other
consistency. Yeah, in other schools around,
That's the question.
around the district.
Okay, so
That's
that
something
you
we
will
can
look
clarify with the AR
with the
as we
AR, and then
finalize
once
it.
it's in the AR and spelled out in the AR,
Yeah.
then that should be pretty much the Bible.
Because then it lends her another level of accountability.
Right. And that would be a conversation
That would be a conversation.
that you would have, yeah.
Right, yes.
Okay, all right. Nancy, was there anything off the agenda that you wanted to,
Right, it's that.
public comments, anything? No? Okay, all right. All right, everybody, thank you. Motion to adjourn?
These
I'm
things.
February
moving to
date.
adjourn.
We had decided that last time.
Okay, I think it's the 19th, just
February 10th,
10th, and
at
there
the
were two.
district office.
Right, and there was one more, I believe, right?
And then we
two
did the
dates.
19th
And the
back
19th.
here again.
Okay.
Right, 10th and 19th. And so, on the 10th,
You want the PE 1.
I think it's time.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, February 1.2, and then on the 19th, was that when the calendar was gonna come, the information, or do we need to do it sooner, Mary?
Well,
I have
You-
the
we
I
gotta-
technology.
think we need to do it sooner, but go ahead.
Okay.
The PE is gonna take some time. Do you wanna
1.2?
start calendar and carry it over, do it twice, I think,
Okay.
because it's gonna be an involved conversation.
Okay, so, and that's plenty, the PE and calendar.
Yeah, I think so.
And when's Karen coming for discipline?
You know what, I have to go back and look at my notes.
Because I have it written down here, but I don't have what.
You have February, March.
I have it in February.
So have Karen put the discipline on the 19th.
Yeah. I think that would work out, because then we could finish the calendar and then move on. Okay.
So we have February 19th.
The 10th is going to be PE 1.2 and the calendar. And then the 19th is going to be the
List of
calendar,
traditions,
continued.
whatever.
And Karen.
She comes up with something next.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
This meeting one